At this point, I will go to the workshop itself and introduce our guest speaker for today. She is no other than Sade Fadipe. Sade is a renowned children's author based in the UK. She has taught in primary schools in Nigeria and England. From 2006 to 2010, Sade worked in Abuja, Nigeria on a reading initiative for Nigerian public primary schools. She trained teachers on the use of fiction books and helped create class-based reading corners to enhance early reading. She currently lives and teaches in Essex and is happily married with 2 daughters who are her constant inspiration. Sade is the author of A Plan ABC. It was published in 2016. Also titled A Visit to Granddad. So that's published 2019 in the USA for ages 3 to 7. She's also the author of Snowy Joy. That was published in 2019. Her first young reader chapter book for ages 8 and above. One of the books has been nominated for the Mock-Clark Awards for non-Western recognition and named as one of the best family books in the Bacon Awards 2020. Please let us welcome Sade. Sade will be talking to us today about one of the questions that get asked the most. How do I find an illustrator? What are the things to look out for when trying to pick an illustrator? How do I go about illustrating my book? That's all Sade is going to be talking about today. Please join me in welcoming Sade Fadipe. Sade, if you're here, over to you. Sade?
Sade, I think you're on mute. Your microphone is
so
muted.
You can't hear me then, can you?
Exactly.
Now we can.
What a way to start.
I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. So
Thank you. Okay. And then
yes.
I can see myself as well. Okay, fantastic. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, Carol. I can see you waving to me. Thank you so much. Bashirat, it's one of those things where you think, okay, what am I going to say about myself? And so I'm so happy that you've been able to pick it up from somewhere where I don't know. But thank you for the introduction. I feel so honored to be here today. Anyone could have done this workshop, really. And so I don't take it for granted that you've invited me to be your guest speaker at this very, very awesome event. I mean, I've got my earrings on today. I think this is probably the second time I'm wearing these earrings. And that's just to say that I'm celebrating this event. It's been a long time coming. It's something that should have been in place decades ago. But without you brave ladies, without you creative, innovative, business-minded ladies, this would not have happened. And so I want to applaud all the trustees, all the board members, everybody, from the chairman, chairman inclusive, everyone that's made this possible. Bashirat, Chioma, Lola, Irene, our gentleman, Tonya, fantastic job that you have done. I sometimes last year, which was just before the pandemic struck, I suddenly realized that I needed a bit more. I needed to connect with people that were writing my kind of stories. I felt out of place. No, I won't say I felt out of place, but I just feel so lonely. Just my book going around as if it's the only one. And I knew that there's so much materials that have been written in Nigeria. And just before the pandemic, I had this desire to reach out to other children's authors. So I called up my friend Chioma, whom I met when I used to live in Abuja, whom I met when I also I have to cut this call. Sorry, I need to switch my phone off. Whom I met while we were both educating very young children. And our kids went to the same school, so we had pleasurable memories. But neither of us knew that we were interested in children's literature. And so here we are today talking about children's books in Nigeria, written by Nigerian authors. And honestly, I celebrate everyone that's in this space this afternoon, every illustrator, every author, every editor. And my last book, Snowy Joy, I made sure that everyone that contributed was Nigerian. My editor was Nigerian. My book cover was Nigerian. My illustrator was Nigerian. Everyone that was involved in that project came from Nigeria. So when that book is being celebrated, I want you to know that it was a joint effort. We pulled this off together. At this point, I'd like to share my slides if I have the right to do so. Yes, I do. Fantastic. I might need to include, okay, just in case. Okay. Okay, please let me know if you can see my slides. I'm going to put it on slideshow so that you see just
yes, we can. Thanks.
One slide at a time. You don't want to see everything all together. Okay, so I've been asked the question, finding the perfect illustrator. And I wanted to, how can we find the perfect illustrator? I was quite tempted to ask the question myself. My question would have been, why are we asking that question? And for every time we ask a question, there's definitely a reason. And so maybe we can scratch, scratch the surface a little bit about why the question even comes up. I've never come across such a question in my entire journey. That may be because I'm not based in Nigeria. It could also be because a lot of authors in Nigeria have to go through the whole journey of self-publishing. So there's a reason behind the question. And so I had to do my own research onto, using the internet, asking friends and finding out what exactly the issue was. And then I thought, why am I being chosen for this event? I mean, what wealth of experience do I have that might help address this problem? And so my wealth of experience, maybe, and without you knowing, is that I actually have more illustrator friends than author friends, which was as a result of an event that the Spanish embassy held in 2010, where they called for all children's writers and illustrators across the nation, and there was a competition. So I was being called upon to be a panelist, to be a judge. And I thought, oh, actually, they're calling me because they don't know that I've, scripted something in the background, in the process of signing a contract. And I said, actually, can I come off the judges list and can you just put me forward? Let me compete. Let me take part in the competition. I said that and I thought, what have I put myself out for? Where is this going to lead to? I just thought, you know what? I'd either be at the bottom of the list or, somewhere in the middle and, and let's see, and that just shows that if you don't try things in life, you never know what will work. And so I put myself forward for the writing competition, but we had a whole week of training with illustrators. Thomas came all the way from Spain and he worked with us. And there were times when we had to draw. I was thinking, I'm not showing that to anybody. And then there were times when we had to share a script. And I was more comfortable sharing my script. And at the end of it, I think they spend the week assessing our scripts and seeing, who fits what. So the day came when the results were going to be announced, and I thought, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. And then my name got called first, and I was thinking, right, she's out of it. She's out of it. For your name to get called first, she's out of it. But I was in that moment where I thought it wasn't about winning for me. It was more to do with the fact that I had put myself forward. And I actually came third, which I was so delighted about, considering that I was not even going to do it. But what came out of that was a conversation in the background that I didn't know about. There was a divide between people who were based in Nigeria, judges who were based in Nigeria and were used to the Nigerian content, and people who were used to the international content. And because those, it tilted, the scales tilted, and so they had to go for, and I didn't know about this until much later, that people that had the foreign experience of reading children's books had actually opted for mine, whereas people who were based in Nigeria and the Nigerian content opted for the other two. And our work was shared with each other. We all got to read each other's work, the three of us. And I could see how, how the decisions were made and why, this person would have come first, that person would have come second, that person would have come third. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And that was my first experience of actually assessing other people's work alongside mine. So I had to take myself out of it and then, just have a look at why the decisions were being made. And I think that in futures, ACAIN grows up, that's some of the things that you probably might be doing, looking at, the content, especially because we're trying to focus on spreading our portfolio across the realms, across the regions. So welcome, that's a long welcome. Go to my next slide. Let's see, let's make sure it works. Okay, okay, fantastic. Okay, so this book was written in 2010, but it didn't get into the market until 2015. Back to the question, how do we find the right illustrator? The reason why it took the book that long to get published was purely because of illustration issues. Now, you didn't know that. You didn't know that, but that was the reason. And my publisher, Cassava Public, did a fantastic, amazing job of trying to look for an illustrator who matched my content. Anybody could have done an ABC book, let's be honest, anyone. You just need to say A is for apple and that's it. B is for bag and that's it. C is for, and that is it. Anyone could have done that. But because they were already internationally focused, they weren't just looking at the context that the book was written in, because I wrote this book thinking about the not so posh Nigerian children. That's how I'll put it. It's absolutely a reflection of the children that I was working with in the rural parts of the FCT. I'm talking about places like Kwali, Gwagwalada, Kuje, places you've probably never heard about. Those were the children I was working with. And so I needed them to see themselves in a picture book, not in a textbook. And that was the origin. And so it took 5 years to work with an editor, 5 years to work with a book designer, 5 years to work with an illustrator. Was it worth it? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Have I churned books out yearly since then? No, I haven't. Why not? Because the same issues are still an issue. The same issues are still an issue. So we definitely have an issue with author, illustrator in terms of picture books in Nigeria. And these are issues that we would overcome, not in one day, not in 1 year, probably a couple of years, but with the help of ACAIN, it is a step in the right direction to get us to where we need to be globally. Okay, so yes, was it worth waiting those years? It was worth it. Absolutely, absolutely. I'd been in Nigeria for 9 years. The book came out in 2015, but by 2014, we had relocated back to England. And actually, I was going to rip the contract. My email was to say, you know what, this thing is never going to happen. I'm out of the country. Let's rip the contract. And my publisher said, guess what? There's more of an interest in your book in the UK than here in Nigeria. So yeah, you better be out of the country. So here is me thinking it's not going to happen. And then I get repositioned for it to happen. It didn't happen. It would have happened anyway, whether I was in Nigeria or not. It would have happened. It just so happened that we had also relocated. What made it happen? The quality of the content, the presentation, the work that had gone in already. So if I had thought, okay, you know what, it's taken so long, I need this book to come out, let it just come out anyhow, then it would have come out anyhow, and it probably would not even make this. I don't think it's selling in Nigeria, to be honest. I don't think it is. Very few people have it. I still have people asking me, where can you get it from? And I know there's a reason behind that. I absolutely understand the reason. How can we find the right illustrator? How can that illustrator help our books get out into the world? So it has, like Bashirat said, it has won some awards, some that I did not even know about, especially when it went into the USA. And they're quite big on Black children, Black books. The UK is a bit more, we've got far more layers in the United Kingdom. But hey, if you happen to get into the US market, then, that's a good thing for you. That is a good thing for you. I'm sure you're asking me how we're going to get there. We will get there. Yes? So the questions that I'm going to be answering as we go along will be, how do I find the perfect illustrator for my book? What steps should both illustrator and author take? What about the money aspect? Who owns the rights over the illustrations? And at the end, there will be a summary. So how do I find a good illustrator? I put good there, and I'll tell you why I put good. Just as there might be no perfect author, there may not be a perfect illustrator. And that's the truth of the matter. That's the truth of the matter. Is my illustrator perfect? No. Am I perfect? No. But the work that we put in with the eye that we use to scrutinize our work is what will help us get that good illustrator for that good book that can go out into a good world. Art is art. There is no, sorry, there's a typo there. There is no good or bad art. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. The person just needs to be suited to your style, and that is the truth of the matter. Whatever content you're creating, the person needs to be suited to your style. That illustrator style needs to be suited to your style. So if you go online and you just think, right, okay, who's a good author? Who's a good illustrator? Okay, I'm going to look him up on Instagram. I'm going to look him up on the web. Oh, okay, I like what that person has drawn. You still have to think about the content that you have created. Does your content match? Now, if you are traditionally published, you would not need to think about that because somebody else is doing all that thinking for you. But if you're self-publishing, the key thing is not to be in a hurry. Yes, because you need to have a clear idea and know exactly what it is that you need your artist to do. The choice of your content is determined by the illustrator. I'll say the other way around. The choice of illustrator is determined by your content. Don't just say this illustrator is really good. He did Lala's book last year. He did that. You're not writing the same things. you're not writing the same thing. So that person has to be suited to your content. And I'll give you a few tips on how to know whether somebody is suited or not. Children's books are diverse. We have a range of children's books. And I think this is one of the, when people have sent me emails and sent me messages for me to review their books, I think sometimes they're surprised that the amount, number one, the amount of content that I send back to them, sometimes actually the feedback I give is far more than the person has written for their book. And so they're a bit surprised. Oh, okay, I didn't know there was so much to notice about my work. And that's the truth. There's a lot of feedback that can be given, and the way that we receive that feedback is important. I've got some of my friends on the platform this morning who are here, who we belong to a group called Kiddie Writes, and we actually look at each other's work and we scrutinize it and we give feedback. Now, your ego has to go out of the window there. Your ego has to completely be lost if you want feedback. And sometimes I've even asked people, I always say to them, you know what, I know this piece of work is perfect. I know, don't even tell me how good it is. Tell me what's wrong with it. Because most of the time, we don't want to hear the hard truth. Yeah, so if you can get the truth, then if you're happy to get the truth about your piece of work, then yes, that is something that we are happy to do as well. So what type of books do we have? We have fiction, we have poetry, we have non-fiction. And when you're writing, when you're doing these, it's important for you to know what genre you are addressing. Very important. So with fiction books, we have stories. They're basically made up. It's basically made up content, things that you are creating out of your imagination. It could be based on people, it could be based on animals, and you can have humor, you can have jokes, you can have fantasy, you can have horror stories, you can have adventure stories. It's quite a vast amount of genres that you can look at under fiction. And then the other one is the non-fiction, where you deal with facts that are be concept books. So a book like mine goes in between, because it's a concept book, it's an ABC book, and so when we write strip books, number books, color books that children learn about, those are called concepts. So when you're writing about concepts, it's important to add something extra that will just make people think, oh, okay, it's not just about the concept, but there's a little bit more that enlightens us. There's a little bit more that makes us want to pick up that book over and over again. I remember, I don't know if that person is in the audience, so that person really upset me when she said, oh, is that all you can write then? Okay, Sade, I was expecting more of you. All you've done is an ABC book, and that really crushed me, and it wasn't until she started seeing how well the book was doing that she actually said, and then I had to start saying to myself, oh, actually, I can actually do a bit more now that I've done an ABC book. It's for some people, it could be the other way around. You'd have to create something that is so original, and then you can start to pick up the other bits that that you say, oh, okay, I can add this to it. Whatever you do, make sure it is you. Make it sure it's the content that you love. Make sure it's not just about you, but things that you embrace, that you enjoy. Don't try to be somebody that you're not in your writing, because when that happens, when you start looking at how somebody has written and you think you can pick up on that person's style, you get lost, and it doesn't, and so you lose that enjoyment of you not being original. So thinking even within non-fiction books that are factual, you can still have your own mark, your own identity with writing non-fiction books. And there are features to do around non-fiction books. How does this inform illustrations? What is your writing? So you've got to find out what your writing genre is before you know what type of illustrator you need for your work. So if you're lost in your understanding, or if you don't have an understanding of what your writing genre is, what tends to happen is you see somebody's drawn something really well, you opt for that person only for you to not get a feel of the person's illustrations. Now I'm talking at an international level. It's quite possible that you can just get anyone to do a piece of drawing, a piece of painting for you, and you put it into your book. That is absolutely acceptable too, if that's what you want. But if you want to attract an external market, then you've really got to be aware of how your genre matches the illustration styles, and if your illustrator suits that content. Very important. So identify the layout, how and where the text is placed is all part of what you would start to think about from the illustration process. Don't let your illustrator to be the person who would dictate that for you. Use the internet to research, find out about local and international artists that work on children's content. Go through their portfolio on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and if you like their work, you can contact them. But what homework should you the author, do before you contact an illustrator? Okay, visit the local library. I know we don't have many of those in Nigeria, but we do have some amazing book clubs that are setting up beautiful work going on with our book club. What do you call? We've got a lot of book forums that do reading clubs with children, and I think even if we don't have libraries at the moment, those serve as amazing libraries, and they do stock books. So if there's anyone that's going to be really good at giving you feedback on your book, I think they're also quite, they've got the ability to say, okay, this person's book is really good. Why not have a look at that? Get a good understanding about how illustrations work. Look at different types of illustrations under that particular genre. And if you do this, your book cover contents will look. I'm just being distracted by, okay. If you do not do this, your book cover contents will look like everyone else's. You've got to be unique in what you do. That's the truth of the matter. Okay, so now this is just a bit of information about when you have gone through portfolios and you've seen a number of people whose portfolios you like. Contact the artist whose portfolio reflects the kind of media that is commonly used within your genre. I don't know if my screen is on. I've got some books here that I was going to show you, but I don't know. I might need to stop sharing my screen just so that you can have a look at some of the books that I have brought along with me. Let me just finish this slide. I want to come back to this slide. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I don't know if I'm put on Spotlight because I want to share some of the books that I have brought along with me. Am I on Spotlight? Are you able to put me on Spotlight? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Right. So I had a run through my library this morning. I'm going to show you two different books. This is a non-fiction book. And it's a non-fiction book because it addresses content of facts. Okay, content of fact, so how do we play chess? We're starting to play chess. You can't go wrong with information like this. If you go wrong with the information, then you're not teaching the right thing. The children are going to make so many mistakes when they play chess. So this is a factual book. We call them non-fiction books. Now, the illustrations within the book are quite factual. The way the content is laid out is also informative. So the information is in chunks. So they're not going all the way from left to right, but you can actually see them in chunks. And you can also see some of them bordered, which means, you know, when you've got within a page, if you've got an isolated chunk of information, you know that that's probably the most important information that you need in the page. So that's just one non-fiction book. Now this one, this is the most recent book that I purchased, and it's from a friend Claire. Really, really lovely illustrations. I just want to show you, and it's a book about, it's actually such a twee book in terms of like the content. It's, you know, who's we? You know, that's, you know, we, it wasn't me. The question is, who did the we? That's the question. Who did the we? Now, the illustrations are so vibrant, so vibrant. But the other thing that I like about I'll tell you what I like in particular about this book is how the we, which is you know, probably not the one thing we talk about when we're reading stories to children, is how it's reflected as an illustration. And there's a particular page that I was going to pull up. Okay, there it is. Okay, I want you to take a close look at, we all know where we comes from, but I want you to take a look at how it's demonstrated in the book. You see no private parts at all. No private parts. But we know that there's, you know, it's coming from a private part, you know. And this is where, when we're thinking about illustrations for children's books, this is where we have to be very careful about the things that we illustrate and the things that we do not. Now, got another one that I wanted to share. And this is by Ifeoma Onyefulu. This is although it's factual, she's not actually used Illustrator. She's used actual photographs because she's a skilled photographer. So depending on the type of work that you're creating, you actually might want to think about using photographs instead of an Illustrator. I don't know if anyone has come across a book called The Giving Tree. The Giving Tree is just black and white illustrations, black and white, and then a few, you know, sometimes you just see a tiny bit of color somewhere, you know. But hey, that book is, you just need to look at the reviews on Amazon. That book is it's a classic now. It's an absolute classic. I had more that I wanted to share, but because of time, I'm just going to move on very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my slides and reshare. I hope this is helpful to people. Can you give me, can you say, just let me know if it's helpful or if I just need to be really quick and just finish my slides. Okay. Okay, hopefully you've not gotten all the way back to slide 1. That's not what we want. Okay, so it's the next slide we want. Okay. Yes. Now, once you have located and am I sharing? Am I sharing? No, I'm not. Gosh. I wasn't sharing. It's very quiet. I've never been in such a quiet Zoom meeting before. Okay. Okay. So contact artists whose portfolio reflects the kind of media that is commonly used within your genre, which means that you have now established what your genre is, and you've had a look at books either from book clubs or from a library, or you've gone online, you've bought ebooks, and you've had a look at the illustrations. Yes? And so you are now in a comfort zone. You know, now you know what you want to do. Now, if you don't hear from that person, you probably, you know, you can find out if that person has friends in common with you. That's what I did, you know. with my self-published work. And then it's always good once you've started working with an illustrator, it's always good to have and maintain a cordial relationship with your illustrator. And that's why it's good to do the homework first. Don't just rush into any, don't just rush up to any illustrator, because sometimes it's a relationship that could carry on for a lifetime, and show your illustrator, this is the next stage now, when you share your script with the illustrator, make sure your illustrator understands it. Make sure your illustrator understands it. Give your illustrator a brief about the individual characters. And it's now that we have Zoom, I think it's even better. Sometimes when you type things out and you send an email, sometimes that connection is not there. But when you have a Zoom meeting and your illustrator gets a good feel about what you're trying to do with your script, then that's, somehow you've crossed up certain boundaries there. Ask them to do a sketch of all the characters. My friend Carol will tell you that was the first thing she did, when she was thinking about an illustrator. Sketch the characters. When the characters come back and you do not like what you see, ask for a revision. There is no point in you struggling with an illustrator who does not match what you have up in your mind, because at the end of the day, that content is in your mind. You're the creator. They're helping you bring it forth. It's just like, and I said, I was speaking to my friend, I don't know if he's in the room today, and I did have a video that I was going to share. We actually had an interview for ACAIN, and I think if it doesn't come up today, definitely, I think we're going to have a look at that video together. I'll try and pull it up later. I'm not sure how much time I have, but I think probably I'll bring up some of the things that we spoke about. Ask him or her to experiment with different moods portrayed within your story. This is important, extremely important. If you have bland characters, the connection will be poor. The connection will be very poor. You don't want your characters to look like everyone else. Neither do you want your characters to be expressionless, and neither do you want your characters to look to overrate the expressions. So that balance has to be struck, especially for people writing fiction books. And if you like the outcomes, it should be smooth sailing from then on. The money aspect, I don't know. Is this a concern? I don't know. I just thought I'll rummage through my old emails and I'll pull up something that someone sent me years back. On a personal level, I don't like, if I need an illustrator to do a job for me, if the person says to me, oh, just send it over and I'll give you a prize. I don't like that. I need to know what your score is straight away. I need to know what your rates are straight away. Even before we start, you don't have to give me a specific price, but I just need to know what your range is. So as a particular illustrator that I want to reach out to, but I need to have a feel. I don't want to just dish out my work and then end the relationship there and then. Okay, so this person said, I receive a brief containing all the illustrations you want done. I cost it and let you know how much it will cost. I request I blocked out the percentage. I hope you can't see it because that could be different for different people. An advance payment on inception. I receive a percentage balance on timely submission. I do book layout and general design. This is a separate cost. Now, you have to be very clear on this. Sometimes illustrators might think that you actually want them to finish off the work for you. Yes, they might think you want them to do the book design. So every time you get the illustrations back, you're thinking, okay, so where are we going from here? They are not book designers unless they specifically say they can do the book design. You can't just do an illustration, get the illustrations, get the text, put them together without you having an idea of what the design should look like. This would be a mistake. Your book would look like the books next door's, or you can do it if you want to. Let's see, this is a separate course. Last one, if you do not meet the deadline for submission, the lateness will attract a deduction from the balance left. Okay. And then there's a fine print. There's a fine print. I wonder what that fine print is. And sometimes the fine prints could be actually smaller than this. So you may miss the fine prints. Yes? So think about that. If I do not meet the deadline for submission, the lateness will attract a deduction from the balance left. But there's a fine print against that. I wonder what the fine print is. If I do not get in touch, and this is what it is, if I do not get in touch to let you know ahead of time of a need to extend the submission date. So, and there you're going to say, oh, okay, I'm not paying you that money back because you said I should deduct deduct a 10%. But he's going to say to you, she's going to say to you, but I did get in touch with you to say I'm not going to be able to meet the date. Another question, who owns the rights over the illustrations? Miss Bashirat, how am I doing for time? You need to unmute.
Well, we have about, say, 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm good then. I'm good. Okay. So who owns the copyrights over the illustrations? It's good practice to engage an illustrator on contractual terms, and your contract will determine what happens from there. Now, I've had conversations with people where people say, oh, if you put my name on the in cover, on the copyright cover, I'll get, I can slash your rates because you give me the publicity. Some people, there are different things that come up, but the key thing is whatever you agree on, have a contract. Number one. Number two, if you get a family member or a friend to do the illustrations for you, I'm not saying it's kata kata, I'm just saying that you still need to have a contract, because at the end of the day, you're going to go ahead and sell that book. You're going to be making a lot of money from selling that book, and that person's going to be thinking, oh, okay, but I did that for free, or I did that for just, yeah. So have a contract with your illustrator. I don't think you can beat that. The physical copy of the illustration will be in your possession if that is what is within your contract. If you go for, if you go for a reduced amount, and and the illustrator just sends you the digital copies, and you haven't covered what happens to the physical illustrations, if you haven't spoken about that, it's taken that it's anyone's game. You can keep it, you can ask for it, and you can say, oh, right, give me extra money, or she keeps it. However, an illustrator holds digital copies of your work and may request your permission to include your book in their profile. Yes, on their profile. So they would have digital copies. Based on the contract that you signed, you might want to talk about permission and usage. And I did have, I said, I need to share at some point, if we do have time, 2 3-minute clips. Maybe once we get into the question and answer session, I'll share those with you. So as a summary, things I need to have in place before contacting an illustrator: a well-edited script. Your illustrator is not going to do the editing for you. They have absolutely no business with the editing at all. An illustration brief. You can't just send the script your script to the illustrator and expect them to make out how you want the illustrations to be done, unless they are that skilled. Unless they're that skilled. But I'm thinking that, you know, with the advent of things, platforms like Zoom now, you can actually have a one-to-one meeting with your illustrator and talk through, you know, what you want, how you want the illustrations to come, you know, to reflect. One of the biggest issues that I had with my illustrations were the expressions. And sometimes it's one thing for you to have a perception of how you want the children to flow. And I think probably because of my being especially a primary school educator, I think I am more conscious about what the children are taking from it. You know, and so in terms of the mood and how the moods change within a story, they're all very important. You also would have by now an understanding of your genre. Are you a fiction writer or are you a non-fiction writer? Are you writing horror stories? Are you writing adventure stories? Are you writing fairy stories? Are you writing thriller stories? Are you writing jokes and humor stories? Or are you very strict on I'm writing a book on recipes. I'm writing for children. I'm writing a book on types of animals for children. I'm writing a book on what to see at the zoo. I'm writing a book on, so be very clear about your journey. I want to believe that if you're here, your focus is on children, children's art, children's writing. An idea of the layout of your design. Please I didn't go through that. I had no time to go through the script. Please ignore any typos you see. A budget. Yes, artists do not joke with their money. They do not joke with their money at all. Patience and diplomacy. No artist likes to hope to be told that their work is rubbish. Even if you think it's rubbish, you can't tell an artist that his work or her work is rubbish. Because guess what? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It may not suit your style. It may not suit your style, but hey, even if I draw stick people, I'm talking about the first person who inspired me to become a writer was Quentin Blake. And you need to look at Quentin Blake. His books, he's not a perfect drawer, but the expressions are there. The mood is there. He did all of the Roald Dahl illustrations for his book. Expect to edit and when I say expect to edit, I'm talking about editing the illustrations. Expect that the illustrations will need to be edited. You would need to make recommendations for changes, and everything has to be done with, working in partnership. And both parties need to respect the contractual agreement, and harmony is best. So ACAIN is here. 3 hearty cheers. Thank you for
Thank you so much, Sade. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. So much to take in. I mean, one of the things I'd like to mention is that we definitely cannot use 1 hour to delve into, the process of getting an illustrator. This is just like a beginner session for us. Hopefully, as we do more workshops and sessions, we can have maybe like masterclass, a more detailed session where we go through all of the things that Sade has spoken about today and even much more. So I know you have lots of questions. Please share your questions. Something that's going to happen is, Sade, if you're happy, the questions that people share, we might not be able to take all of the questions today. However, if you're happy, we can send the questions to you and then you can respond to them and then we can share them back with the participants. Is that something that you'd be happy to do?
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely fine.
Thank you so much. So in that case, I will just take one question. I'll take one question, which can, and that's the only question I am going to take. But I think that question relates to talking more about the peer review, as that can be something that we can benefit from here at ACAIN. Is that how do we go about this peer review? That's one question that came up. How do we go about this peer review?
Okay. So with the peer, when you say the peer review, what tends to happen is I get either via Instagram or any of my social media, I get emails. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see anything at the moment. My screen is frozen. And so I just get emails. What we do is we have an information group, or a consortium of authors, and we're all based in the UK. And so we review work from different people, and we can send you more information about that as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. So everyone, if you have any questions for Sade, or if you have any questions for us, please send your questions, post your questions in the chat box. I'll pick them up after the session. I'll share them with Sade, and we'll give responses for them and share the responses with you. I will now move on quickly to the process of becoming a member, and that is for Irene. So let me just go back to my screen and share screen. Irene Omiunu, who is also a trustee. Irene, can you please take us through the process, the membership application process?